Hi, it's Dave here from the Handyman Geek blog. So I have a problem with my shed. It's a shed that's about 10 years old. It's like a Home Depot plastic shed. So the doors here are not lining up. And when I look at it, I see the reason. This keeps popping off, the little corner of a hinge. So, so I wanted to do a quick fix, but this plastic here is just beat. It's not going to last anymore. Not going to do anything for me. So I'm tired of kicking it, so let's pull it apart here and see what I can do to fix it. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to cut off this little socket that the hinge pin sits in, but we're going to have to replace it with something so that it swings properly. So as you can see, the hinge pins, when you pull the door off, this top pin falls out. So we kind of jam it back there, stay, and then we'll grab the bottom one. The middle hooks in through the door as well, right here in the middle. So that one seems to be holding up okay. It's this bottom corner. So let's grab that hinge pin and see what we can do with it. We're going to pull this, cut this piece off here, and we're going to make it an attachment. We're going to remanufacture a hinge because I can't find any hinges online. I did a search for them. So here's what I came up with. Is basically a piece of aluminum pipe cut and bent into the right spot. So that's approximately the right length. Let me show you how I did this. So to make a piece like this, we're going to need a few tools: hammer, pliers, hacksaw, some self-tapping screws, and a screw gun is handy. Also files and maybe a second pair of pliers, and not pictured, a flat screwdriver here. So we took the hinge pin in, found some scraps kicking around the garage, and we found a piece of pole. So it could be a piece of an old shovel handle, a broom handle, or maybe an old Festivus pole. So here we found something that fits in. You want to make sure you're going to be able to turn that and maybe clean it out a bit, so I didn't have that problem. So what I needed to do next was to take that piece of pole, kind of measure what I needed. So we need to make sure, of course, we have the depth for the hinge pin. Then we're going to take that and make it at least double, maybe a little longer. So there's the depth that I need. I've made a mark with a crayon. Probably want to use a Sharpie or a pencil, something that's going to mark better than that crayon that I used. So you're going to go down, just rough guesstimate, so at least double the length of or at least the length of the thing again, the hinge pin. Then we're going to make a horizontal cut here as well. So what we did next was we took that and we got our hacksaw, we got our vise there. We're going to clamp it in the vise so that we can do the cuts easily. So to spare you all the grunting and groaning here, we'll just cut to the finished piece. So there we have the cut across the pipe. You know, you're going to want to put that in a vise, something to hold it solid while you're sawing on it. It goes pretty easy with a hacksaw through this aluminum. So in this vertical cut, across the pipe, you're going to want to cut it, but of course don't cut all the way through. What you're going to do, when I rotate it here, you'll see how much I left, stopped the cut. So then we just took that horizontal split and we pounded it with some pounded a flat screwdriver into it, pounded it out with the hammer till we got it flat. Then we want to bend it, start bending it in the opposite direction from what the pipe had bent, the turn of the pipe. So we clamped it in here and did a few hits this way. And then we figured out that we could turn it a bit and use the claws of the hammer to put a bend in that direction. This got us started here. And we flipped it over, used the claws of the hammer, there you go, and put it in here. Always fun to figure these things out. So we had it set up approximately 45 degrees, hammered out, a little bit rough. So when we got out to our deck or tool bench or whatever you want to work with, I had a nice 45-degree piece of wood here, nice that I could hammer it out, just get a little closer to that shape that's going to fit on the door. So we pounded that out, made it a little flatter, a little bit cleaner, a little bit fiddled around here. Now we go over to the door, which I have laying on its side, and I want to cut that piece off now. So I want to just double check the length to make sure it's going to be deep enough for that hinge pin. And then we're going to grab the hacksaw and remove that socket piece that's molded part of the door. So it ain't going to do us any good anymore. We got a new part for that. We've manufactured it, only took us maybe 10-15 minutes. So we want to cut this off, make it a little bit cleaner. Try and get it off cleanly here. Take it off. And once we cut this off, I'll drop it on the ground there. I might want to use that piece later just to cover up our hinge pin, our hinge socket that we're making. So what I wanted to do was make that pin fit just a little nicer. So as I double checked it here, it looked like it was sitting out a bit from the door. So we also, just to see where the old one was, line up the new piece in its place. Make sure you've aligned it with the bottom of the door for your measurement. And then to make it fit in a little tighter, you might want to do a little bit more cutting. But we're also going to want to make that piece that's hanging over wrap around. That'll give it added strength to support through the door. And what I did to do that little bend was, because it's so hard to bend the metal at that thickness, the aluminum. So we did a little saw cut through here. Speed that up a bit for you so you can watch it. Now we take our pliers and just start bending on that little cut line so that we can make it wrap around. It's going to be like a little clip that clips over the door once we do this. I could have just cut it off, but I like the idea of bending it over. It gives it a little added strength as well. So hammer that in just a little bit, make that a little snugger, and then I'm going to go and snap that onto the door and put it in place. It's a little more refinement, a little back and forth there. There's the piece. So you can see it's not pretty, it's not perfectly shaped, but it's going to do the job for us. So you can spend as much time or as little time as you want on that. Across the bottom. So a little bit more filing. Do it right the first time. Actually use a pipe cutter if you have one. If you can get your hands on one, just rolls around and makes the cut perfectly square. But you might still want to use the file just to take the burr off the edges, both on the outside edge of the pipe and the inside, because remember it's sitting on plastic. So it's going to wear through a little bit. I don't know if this is going to last us another 10 years, but it should do the job. So then we take some 7/16 or 6 by 7/16 framing screws. These are little self-tapping screws. Saves you drilling, saves you fiddling, and makes life easier. I use these for a lot of things where a little short screw will do the job. So then we get our screw gun, right tip, Phillips cross for these, and we're gonna snap this essentially into place because I got my little clip ledge on it, so it kind of holds it nicely in place. Line it up at the bottom, and there we go, self-tapping screws. Now with these short self-tapping screws, you don't want to over tighten them, so just get them so you spin them until they start to cut through the aluminum, and then just zip them in gently so you don't over tighten it, because if you over tighten it, you're going to strip the plastic that's underneath it, and it's really not going to hold as well as you'd like. So 2 screws on the edge of the door and a couple on the front, and here's, you can see a little better how this will tap itself through the wood, or through the metal, and then into the plastic. And I don't want to over tighten that, just get it the right amount. So I used 4 screws on this. That'll do the job. Drives in, makes life nice and easy. So then we just want to make this door a little bit more solid here where the plastic's kind of coming apart. I suppose you could glue it because it's plastic, but since I got self-tapping screws, let's just pop a couple of these screws in here. This will keep it from moving around too much on us. Okay. All right, so now that's about it for the hinge replacement. Now what we want to do is just fit it in here. Now the door popped off quite easily when we had a broken hinge, but in order to fit it in correctly here onto this top hinge pin again, I shoved a piece of grass in there to hold it up. What we need to do is we need to raise the roof. So we need to just pop the corner of the shed up here so that this is going to fit back. So raising the roof is a little easier than it might sound. So all you got to do is take these 2 little thumb screws, pop these little quick screws out here, and put them in your pocket so you don't lose them, something like that. Lift the roof. So now what we want to do is get the door in with our new hinge pin in first. Pop that in there, get that in, and then you want to line up the center pin in the door. So put one arm in behind the door and just give it a little tap. It should pop right in. And then you want to lift the roof a bit here and get the top door hinge pin in. See how easy that was? Now your door will swing properly, assuming you lined everything up, and you just want to go in and pull those little thumb screws out of your pocket and put them back in here. So there you have it. That hinges are tight, the door should swing smoothly, and you just want to close that door, and then your hinge problem is fixed. And look at that, it closes and latches, so we're all good now. So anything else from here on is just a little cosmetic touch up here. That's your new hinge pin. So just to fill in that gap so it doesn't suck up water, I cut off the old piece of the socket that I did, and I shoved some paper in the top of that hinge pin, added a little goop to that little piece that we cut off, fill it with goop, good generous blob here, and just pop that on top, and it'll almost look like a finished hinge. There you go. So thanks for watching.